Commence primary ignition.
What's up, guys? I'm Emily Swallow. If you're looking at this, you're watching the virtual Cantina network. This is the way.
Hey.
This is the way.
The armor has spoken.
It never gets old, like seeing Emily Swallow introduce our stuff. That's pretty cool.
It is so cool. Emily and Lauren, and it's just and Chris. Yeah, it's fantastic. Hello there, John.
Hey y'all. We're having a little bit of technical snafu, so bear with us as we get big and small on your screen. We're sorting it all out.
Yeah.
Which is fine, because we're going to give it a few minutes anyway for everybody to log in. Get here on this fine Wednesday night.
Yeah, it's been a while, but it's good to be back in the daughter's seat.
Isn't it weird? Like, only 1 week just makes everything feel so much longer. Like, we were only off for like 1 week, but it feels like it's been so long since we've had a daughter show. I don't know.
I know. Probably because I had a crisis at the last one. I didn't get to go.
Yeah, it's longer for you.
Yeah. I
Longer
missed
for
you
you.
guys.
All good. It's okay. Mark and I screamed about Mon Mothma for like an hour and 15 minutes.
Mothma's back.
And
Yeah.
then we went shopping on eBay. So, I mean, it was a good show. We had some fun.
It was so fun.
We had some fun.
Watching in my car. Once I first got it going, I'm like, oh my god, I miss you guys.
No worries. But we're back tonight. We're going to talk about Barriss Offee. We're going to talk about Luminara Unduli. We've got lots of fun things to say because these characters are like weirdly polarizing, I found. So we're going to see what people have to say about them, I suppose. I feel bad. You're only like half in the screen.
I'm half me. I'm just gonna scooch over.
Scooch over.
That's my usual seat, but yeah, it's fine.
My closet has more real estate than you do right now.
I
mean, well, hi again, everybody. It looks like some folks are joining in on the chat right now. Welcome again to Daughters of the Galaxy. Today is Wednesday, September 6th.
Already.
Yeah. Listen, we are here. We are in peak pumpkin spice season. It's still 100 degrees here in Florida, so there's no fall for me.
Still 85 degrees with 90% humidity here in Massachusetts. So
global warming. We love it.
We're all sweaty. Drinking our apple cider.
That's actually probably even sadder than my situation. I would not want to drink like a hot beverage in 100 degrees. Like that's even sadder than just being perpetually hot.
Yeah.
I remember they like made a big deal about an event down here in the fall about like, oh, we're gonna have apple cider at this event. No, it was cold apple juice is what it was. We don't have fall here in Florida.
I feel like when they have the not so scary Halloween party, they really try.
Oh, they sure do.
And
they
I
sure do.
That, but
it only gets worse as you get into like December when like they do the fake snow on Main Street and you're like, okay, but it's like 90 degrees outside right now and it's fake snowing, so there's something really disjointing about that. But anyway, we're not here to talk about our fall trauma. We're here to talk about
their trauma.
Their trauma. It's true. It's not a daughter show unless we're talking about somebody's trauma, I guess.
How we roll, I guess. Hi, Sherry. Hi, lady.
Definitely how we roll. Trauma.
Absolutely. Star Wars is trauma.
Not a Star War if we don't have a trauma. So we're going to talk a little bit about Barriss Offee. We're going to talk a little bit about Luminara Unduli, but I think we should probably talk about Mira Lawrence as a starting point. And I'm going to joke because that's one of those words that I didn't know how to say until I started listening to audiobooks.
I know, I'm still struggling. It's like when you see Hermione written and then when you hear Hermione
Yeah.
said, it's two totally different things.
Two
So
totally different words. Yeah, I remember listening to the first audiobook where that word came up and I was like, that's how you say that word? And I just felt really stupid.
Hermione?
As as somebody who considers himself to be pretty smart, that was definitely a word that threw me for a loop.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mirror So those are the fun humanoid type folks you see with all the neat facial tattoos. And as we were starting to get ready for this show, it's such a weird thing because there's like not really a ton of content that features Luminara and Barriss, but like what there is, oh my god, I'm gonna make the worst pun ever. Because I was gonna say what there is like really explosive comment, and then I was like,
Well,
maybe a bad choice of words.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah. But it's true.
it's it's yeah. Listen, at least I caught it before like I actually said it. It was like, yeah, I'm just gonna commit to it. But the Mirror culture, I think, is really important when we talk about this Master Padawan duo.
Yeah.
Um, because they're kind of like, in a lot of ways, I don't want to say like a closed society, but they're like a society that's like really focused on their traditions and on their histories and really protecting a lot of their beliefs and their culture. And it's said, and it comes up in a couple different places, especially in like the books, that Miralaran Jedi have a really unique connection and a really strong connection to the Force. So I thought that was kind of interesting as we were
That is
preparing.
cool.
And then, of course, like the striking physical appearance of the Miralarans with their, with the facial tattoos and everything. It's said that every diamond on their face is another personal achievement that they've sort of accumulated in their life. So, the more of those diamonds you see
Wow.
across their face, um, the more sort of they've accomplished in their life. And yes, in theory, only a Miralaran Jedi can train another Miralaran, which is such an interesting thing because as I was doing some research and some reading in this, the only example that they gave was Luminara and Barriss.
And didn't Mace Windu have a Miralaran
He
master?
sure did. Yeah, he sure did.
What?
Sislin Mir, I think was his name. Yeah, Sislin Mir. Sorry, I had the wrong letter there. And then because let's see, we've made it 7 minutes into the show, so it's time that I talk about the High Republic. But like
Ta-da!
Vernestra, there it is. Listen, I said 4 minutes on
Yeah.
my Facebook, my Instagram story, so I made it 7 minutes. Um,
You did. Well
almost
done.
double. But Vernestra Rowe, who was the youngest Jedi Knight at only 15 years old, her master was a human. So I really want to know more about where this information around like only a Miralaran can train another Miralaran came from, because in theory it's fascinating, but there's nothing to really back it up.
Yeah, it's like they place the ground rules and are like, "Oh crap, we need to make more Miralarans." Maybe
Yeah, it's
we'll
like
just
backpedal,
skip over
backpedal,
that.
back. So, but like if you look at like the timeline of like when these characters came out, Mace Windu's master as Sislin Mare it's already like a Legends book. Like it's like dead and gone, I think, by the time the Clone Wars,
Yeah.
the animated series had really started. And then of course the High Republic stuff came way after the Clone Wars. So like I said, I just want to know like where it's said and like where this idea of only a Miralaran can train another Miralaran came from. Because I'm not mad about it. I just
No.
want to know where it came from.
We need cold hard facts. Yeah. Yeah,
Right, John.
exactly,
It's like the
John.
chicken and the egg. Who trained the first Miralaran? I have a lot of questions. Could it be a preference? Absolutely, because one of the things we'll kind of start to talk about as we get into Barriss and Luminara is a lot of, not a lot of times, I mean it's pretty well established that these characters are Middle Eastern coded.
Yeah.
So if it's a religious choice or like a religious or a cultural choice, perhaps that could be part of it. I don't know. This is what I want to know. But it is established that Miralarans are very strong in the Force, and they do have a unique a connection to the Force. So I kind of love that.
Yeah,
I
I do
love that.
too. Like I feel and this is the positive side about them being Muslim coded. Um they have a strong connection to the Force. Their beliefs are strong. Their customs are strong. Like I am all for that part of it. Like it's the representation is good. It's there. However, it's the
However,
other stuff that comes with that
yeah,
that I don't
I mean,
particularly care
there
for.
were some bold choices made in Barris's storyline, and I guess we'll get to that as we kind of progress a little bit further. But I guess we should probably start with Luminara as the master, right?
Yeah.
Um, so Luminara, it's weird because like I think when we watch a lot of like when we watch the actual first execution of Order 66, of course, in episode 3, you start to see a lot of Jedi that you're like, oh yeah, they were kind of in the movie, and like, oh yeah, so were they, and oh, I remember that one, but like we didn't get a lot of like real backstory for a lot of these Jedi.
Yeah.
We're just like, now they're dead. That kind of sucks. And I feel like Luminara was one of them.
Yeah. Agreed.
She was executed on Kashyyyk, um, which of course was after Barriss bombed the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, and it's sort of her story is really sort of sad because she goes to Kashyyyk and she really throws herself into the preservation and the protection of Kashyyyk after her Padawan has such a huge fall from grace. So that was kind of her opportunity to really throw herself back into her Jedi work and throw herself back into writing the galaxy and providing aid where aid is needed,
Yeah.
and she kind of bites it. um okay, so okay. Facebook user. Reminder, Facebook user, if you are not signed in, we don't know who you are. So I'm going to continue to call you Facebook user.
I'm gonna say it's Chantel.
With all the affection in the world, Facebook user. So Luminara is so strong in the Force and such a strong supporter of the Republic. I feel that's why they wrote her the story the way they did with her apprentice. I think so too. I think the two of them are tremendous foils for just about everything that we see in the Clone Wars. Because they are such unique takes on Jedi.
Yeah.
Mark, who is producing this show right now and who had lots of things to say about these two on Rebels Revisited,
Yes.
I would say, and this is probably a spicy opinion, but I'm not afraid of spicy opinions. I actually think they're two examples of probably like the best the Order has to offer insofar as like upholding the Jedi the Jedi code, right? And like what
Yeah,
is it?
like to the letter, to the absolute letter, the sacred Jedi texts as they were in human form or humanoid form is right here. So
And we see that so
that
Second
way.
Battle of Geonosis is like really I think the first arc where in the Clone Wars where everybody's like, oh yeah, Barriss and Luminara, we should probably pay attention to them.
Yeah.
For those of you who I say this like nobody in the chat has seen this, like everybody of course has seen this, right? So Second Battle of Geonosis, the two of them are paired up with Anakin and Ahsoka to try to take down a weapons factory.
Yeah,
I
that
think
was such a stark contrast between both sets of masters and apprentices. Like night and day.
yeah.
And
I mean, it literally, the episode like literally starts out with Anakin and Ahsoka like yelling at each other.
yeah, and they're just standing there scandalized, like, oh my god, like her master lets her speak this way. It was just like insane to like
Yeah, there are like so many fun little like physical quirks in that episode.
yeah.
Like, so like
It's almost comedy, but like at the same time it's like two different sides of the same coin.
so like yeah, like Luminara like just calmly kind of walks up and like Barriss is like trailing behind her at a respectful distance. And Barriss goes to introduce Luminara goes to introduce Barriss and she does this little curtsy and I'm like Ahsoka Tano would never. Like, they would absolutely never.
She calls her master Sky Guy. Okay.
Yeah.
Must watch this episode, you guys. Seriously.
And like so Luminara is like calmly laying out this plan for how they're going to infiltrate the weapons factory, and the two masters are going to hold back the attacking forces, but the two Padawans are going to go into the factory themselves and like actually bring it down, right? And they're like, yeah, Barriss has somehow memorized the entire catacomb system, and Anakin's like, she did what? She did what? Like she.
Like,
So
I am a shitty master. Like, oh my god, my Padawan sucks, and it's all my fault.
The backpedaling, and it's like you kind of like almost feel bad for like poor Ahsoka because I think Ahsoka is like seeing Barriss and like what her master has trusted her with, and like all the responsibility she's taken on and things like that, and the fact that her master just implicitly trusts her. And meanwhile Anakin's like, all right, well, you clearly can't handle this briefing, so I guess I'm going to take over because you're a dumb child and I'm the responsible adult. It's really awkward.
Well.
Yeah, really, really awkward. And then, of course, they get into the catacombs and they get into these paths, and it becomes clear that like Barriss mostly knows what she's doing, but like when she stumbles and kind of has that moment of like, oh gosh, I don't know, like which way am I supposed to go?
She's
I
not
think
good
that
at improvising. Like,
no,
absolutely not.
no, she's definitely not good at improvising, and she's very much a by the book, by the rules kind of character.
Yeah.
That arc, I think, it's 3 episodes, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's 3 episodes, because the second episode is the episode where they infiltrate. The Padawans are sent off for relief duty, and Luminara infiltrates the Queen's lair, the Geonosian Queen's lair, and then the third episode is the one with the brain slugs, which we'll get back to.
I blocked that one out.
It's a pretty gross one.
It's a pretty gross
I just rewatched all of them, and I was like, oh, this is gross. But throughout those 3 episodes, Luminara and Barriss are like such strong foils to Anakin and Ahsoka. And I think the biggest takeaway across those 3 episodes, somebody kind of just hinted at it with Anakin's arrogance. I would actually even take it a step further than Anakin's arrogance. I would say it's Anakin's issue with attachment. Because especially in the second episode where Luminara is talking about how completely prepared and completely unfazed she is by potentially losing her Padawan, she kind of just says, like, if that's what the Force wills it to be, then okay, I guess that's what the Force wills it to be. And if my Padawan is meant to rejoin the living Force, then that's what she's going to do. And Anakin is like gobsmacked by the idea of like losing Ahsoka.
Oh, my baby. Like,
yeah.
He's like absolutely scandalized by how callous Luminara is. And it's like, okay, you're responsible for this child, and she's a child by all means. She is a child. This child's life, and I don't know. I found that, I remember watching that episode and finding that particularly jarring too, because it's like, shouldn't like Barriss take offense to this too? Because it means she's expendable to her master. Like, it was just kind of messed up to me. So I don't know. I did not care for Luminara, and it bugged me later when Kanan spoke of her with such reverence, and I'm just like, she was just willing to nuke her Padawan completely and just be totally okay with it.
But let's talk about that expendable, like that quality of potentially being expendable, because Barriss is where Ahsoka has the ability to improvise for better or worse on the battlefield. Barriss is like, lock me in the archives and just let me read. I'm Barriss. Lock me in the archives and just let me read a book. Like, she is very much like the scholar. She's very much like, I want to really dive into and explore, the Jedi history and our origins and what it means to interact with the Force and meditation and these things. So they're very, very, very opposite. And I think for Barriss, the potential of being on the front lines, the way that Ahsoka is or was, very different. I don't think she ever really saw herself as necessarily being on the front lines until the Clone Wars really picked up in,
it's
in battle.
Exactly. Like, and I think that also led to, we'll get more into this once we explore Barriss's story, but it also helped further the disillusionment that she had with the Jedi. Like, you're so willing to make these keepers of the peace soldiers for a war that they really should have no connection and no involvement in. And it's completely wrong. It's against everything that we were taught, everything that is in these books. And I think it further propelled her away from the Order.
Yeah, oh, for sure. But that's one of those things where, I think the Clone Wars was such a long-running series with so many characters and so many arcs and so many storylines it had to follow. I kind of wish, I kind of wish we had gotten more of that backstory. And for me,
Yeah.
somebody who lives in the comic books and the books, it's actually kind of disappointing that there really isn't a ton of backstory explored with either of these two characters, with Barriss and Luminara, which does lead, of course, to a lot of speculation, which you could argue we're doing right now. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
we're working with the information that we have, which I guess is
Absolutely.
not a lot. But I think this story especially is important because there's a reason they chose to feature these two characters against somebody like an Anakin, somebody like an Ahsoka. There were other Padawans they could have chosen, other Master Padawan duos. They
Yeah,
just
Din
didn't.
Balaba and Caleb Doom. Just
Um,
saying. Yeah.
they just didn't, and I think there was a reason why. Because I think really these two were the beacon, as it were, of what an exemplary Jedi should be, or what an exemplary Padawan should be.
Absolutely.
Um, and I think the two of them just sort of are so connected to each other in a way, and in the Force in their own way, that they're just willing to kind of do whatever it takes. And we saw that, I guess, to sort of round out the second battle of Geonosis arc with the brain worms that everybody hates. um
I'm sorry. I'm sitting here eating gummy worms.
It's gross. You're eating gummy worms? We're talking about this?
My mom brought me.
Sis, go get yourself like Doritos or something. We can't have gummy worms while we're talking about brain worms.
That's why I'm just like, wait a minute, hold on. What am I doing? Anyway, okay. Continue.
Oh God, are you sure? You okay?
I'm good.
Of all the snacks you could have pulled out, we were talking. That was probably the absolute worst one you could have pulled.
Happy Halloween.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm here for a good trolley gummy worm, but as we talk about brain worms, this is a weird choice. God, I don't even feel right continuing.
Oh, just do it. It's fine. The bag is down. It's away. It's good.
I mean, all right. So Barriss gets this brain worm. Potentially from no, it came from an egg. It didn't come from a bag of trolley gummy worms. That would be weird. And I guess where I was going with this is that she's totally prepared to die for the sake of the mission. She basically, the whole ship is compromised. They're trying to figure out, we're trying to go pick up relief materials to redistribute, but all the clones on this ship are totally infected, and now Barriss is infected, and Ahsoka's the only one trying to figure out how to save everything.
And she's literally got the scariest freaking tongue I've ever seen in Star Wars.
It's gross. Yeah, so the whole scene is totally gross. But when she regains enough of herself to be able to communicate back with Ahsoka, she basically is just kill me. Kill me and get it done, and that's the only way to save this mission, is kill the clones, kill me, if that's the only way to
now this is a sliding door moment. If Ahsoka actually listens to her, the temple doesn't get bombed.
Hey!
She doesn't leave the Jedi Order. There might not be Order 66. I'm just saying. I don't know, maybe.
I mean, this is where I feel like my blood pressure would absolutely spike with stuff like this, but this is where I'm could we
coulda, woulda, maybe
like a what if show, like what Marvel did, but no, I don't need my blood pressure any worse than it already is thinking about some of this stuff.
So there is a really interesting quote that I had found regarding Ahsoka's take on what happened with Barriss and her disillusionment with the Jedi Order. But it says Barriss Offee was wrong about a lot of things. She let her anger cloud her judgment, and she tried to justify her actions without considering their wider effects. She was afraid of the war, and she didn't trust people, but she shouldn't listen. She should have listened to. But she had a point about the Republic and the Jedi. There was something wrong with them, and we were too locked in our traditions to see what it was. Now, side note, she's also pretty locked into her traditions too, but apparently.
As I say, and that's such a big conflict across the board in this era of Star Wars, is you've got two groups of people that are just aggressively locked in their ways of thinking.
Oh my gosh, traditions. Yeah. And neither is right or wrong. It's just situational, I guess.
It is, and it's so yeah, I guess let's jump ahead to the temple bombing, because I feel like that's where we have a lot to really talk about.
That is the bulk of our Barriss and Luminara discussions. So it says Barriss should have done something else. She
Mhm.
shouldn't have killed anyone, and she definitely shouldn't have framed me for it.
Mhm.
But if we listened to her, really listened, we might have been able to stop Palpatine before he took power. Again,
Yep,
with the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, but
John pretty much hit it on the head.
yeah, the right things for the wrong reasons.
Um, so part of why I really wanted to like hone in on the second Geonosian war a bit before we came into this was because I think it's really important to understand that up until this moment, Barriss was a really great Jedi,
Yeah,
and
like
and Luminara was a really great master. They were very different, but they were a great team that had demonstrated results.
and it was a
Um,
reason why they got promoted by the council when they did.
so as we get into the temple bombing, I think it's important to remember a couple of things, and this is not to justify it. First of all, these are literally child soldiers. they're like teenagers. Barriss is only like I think a year or so older than Ahsoka,
Yeah.
so they're kids, they're teenagers. But also, I think when the war really starts to pick up and you have lived your life a certain kind of way, it starts to compound on itself, and it starts to like one thing kind of starts to feed into the other, and you start to look at things the way that Barriss was looking at things and saying, this is not right. Like, we are the problem here. Um, Especially, for the Jedi who are, these self-proclaimed like keepers of the peace, and we're not soldiers. We're not here to be in a war. We're not here to knock
Yet they're
people
on
out.
the
And
front lines commanding clone armies. So it's
right.
that double speak, talking out of both sides of their mouths, and a lot of people get really disenchanted with the hubris of the Jedi at this point, and
Well,
the Republic to an extent. So
absolutely. And I think about somebody like Ahsoka who is able to in this era like really kind of roll with the punches of being like commander and like being called commander and being in charge of like a squadron of clones
I
versus somebody
thoroughly
like
enjoy that when they call her Commander Tano. I'm just like, ma'am.
yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
um, I I love yeah, so she takes it with like a certain level of grace, right? But I think about somebody like Barriss, who's like, "Oh God, please don't call me commander. Like, I don't want to be responsible for a battalion of clones. Like, I'm not into that."
Yeah, when someone doesn't believe in war and has spent their entire existence up until that point preaching peace and learning how to be a peaceful instrument in the world, in the galaxy,
Mhm.
it's completely jarring. It's uncomfortable. It's against everything they believe in.
Yeah, and okay, so the chat's getting it's popping.
Yeah,
Right.
Lanny.
So it makes sense for Barris's point of view or as for the greater good, which could also extend the end, justify the means. Um, yeah, I believe that. Um, I think it's one of those things where if it's not going to wipe out the Jedi Order, it's at least the wake up call to the Jedi to be like, hey, 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 stop doing this. Quit doing this. Let's fix this. Let's go back to what we were supposed to be doing. I do also think that, who made the decision, the Chancellor, a freaking Sith. Yep, that does matter too. And I think there is definitely some of that, that behind the scenes kind of game playing and puppeteering and everything. It's not to say that he was necessarily like, hey, Barriss, go blow up this temple. But I do think that there's something to be said for the fact that she, fights Anakin using Ventress's stolen sabers.
Yeah, and to take everything that the Jedi hold dear and to turn it on its head and to slowly um pull everything apart that holds Anakin to the light side of the Force, like get rid of his Padawan, get rid of his wife, get rid of his best friend.
Mhm.
Like the attachments are slowly being pulled, like the threads are being pulled from his life, and he's enjoying it. So
Well,
yeah,
and
he definitely did make that decision.
this is such a great example too, if we think about Anakin of like where Barriss really had like she didn't have that same level of connection, right? So she was prepared to literally see everything like this was her home. She grew up in this temple. She grew up with these people, and she was willing to say, "This isn't working. I'm just going to level this thing to the ground, and I'm going to make my point. And I'm working to what was said in the chat for the greater good, right?" And she doesn't have that attachment. Whereas if it had been somebody like Ahsoka, like, could you imagine like the absolute horror of somebody like Ahsoka being like, "Yeah, I'm going to bomb the temple," like. No.
And you're absolutely right. Like, there was no attachment to those people whatsoever. It was more about the statement that she made. Now,
Mhm.
do I think it was kind of xenophobic to have the Muslim representation
Oh.
people do the temple bombings? Like, honestly, like, when it happened, I
Makes me
cringed.
so angry.
I was just like, this is the absolute worst. This is like, what's his face? I couldn't even. I blocked out this guy, the one that is supposed to be like horrible takes on Koreans. You know what I'm talking about? The Viceroy. Like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
But it just continues that horrible, like,
yeah. This
in Star Wars, and I do not like that. And
I have no issue dragging Star Wars where Star Wars needs to be dragged. And when I think about like my top 5 moments of like absolute hot mess, nightmare, like I cannot believe I just saw this in my Star Wars, it was absolutely using the Muslim coded
yes,
character to be the
yeah,
temple bomber. Like that has to be like, if it's not number 1, it's a close number 2 for me.
yeah, and Watto too. Like, we'll throw Watto into that mix. Like, they were just horrible stereotypes in the prequels, and then dragged into the Clone Wars, and it just George, no,
Yeah, it
no,
just
George.
needed to be especially because like when these episodes were airing, like we were still so much closer to a lot of conflict in the Middle East. I mean, there's
Yeah,
always conflict
like,
in the Middle East,
it's
unfortunately.
obviously still going
Um,
on, but like, it was 2008, so it was
5, 8, 9, yeah. So
yeah, and that between 2005 and 2008, so it was not a good time for us as a country, and a war was going
yeah,
on, and it's just like, really, I
again,
get it. You
it's
want to keep Star Wars current, I get it, but it doesn't
that's
need to
not
be
the
like
way.
that.
That's
No.
not the way. I think too, uh, you know, one of the things that I was really missing from that arc was Luminara's real response to it. Because we see
Thank you. Yeah, I agree.
we see the the fall, like how Barriss has set up Ahsoka, and we see how the whole plan was kind of devised and how everything was formed, and then we see the bombing, of course, and then we go straight to Ahsoka's trial, and everybody's so shell shocked by Ahsoka's trial, and then Barriss's confession, and then Ahsoka leaving the temple, that it all things happen. We don't really get to see Luminara's grief and like
Yeah.
handling of this, because the master and Padawan relationship is obviously such a sacred one, but also to like have what we started this show with, that Miralaran connection and that familiarity and those shared traditions and customs and the sacredness of sort of training the next generation of Miralaran Jedi. Like, now think about Luminara in this situation, and if we're going to use current events as sort of what fed this choice, and I don't know, again, we're speculating because there's no information here. If we're going to use current events in America as fuel for Barriss making the choices she made, now think about what every other Middle Eastern parent or person has gone through in this country, and to not give Luminara her moment to like reflect back on that and to
Yeah.
you know condone, to admonish her um her Padawan, and to be really horrified about her Padawan's actions. Instead, all we kind of get is, well, she threw herself back into the Jedi Order and she went off to Kashyyyk. Okay, bold choice. um
Yeah, that's nothing. That's just, I don't know. I don't feel like that's storytelling accountability, if that makes
it's not.
sense.
It's not.
It's like, you create the situation, you create these characters, but you don't give us you don't give us like the after moments, like the time with the character, like kind of like the difference between like Jedi Knight happening 4 or 5 episodes before the end of the season, and then having it be the last episode, and just us not seeing the grieving, or the loss, or anything else that comes
Well,
after it.
and I think, unfortunately, these are two characters that, in a lot of ways, don't get a lot of real resolution across the board. Barriss, as far as we know, is still alive, in theory.
Not
There's all
Merrick.
this. Yeah, we know she. Well,
Spoiler
yeah,
alert.
spoiler alert. I guess that wasn't really much of a spoiler because, yeah,
It's all over the internet at
in
this point.
theory, Barriss is still out there somewhere doing what Barriss is gonna do.
I really
You know,
wonder, like, if they're going to have, and it'd be cool. And like, what became of her? Like,
well,
we know what happened to Luminara, and frankly, it's probably terrifying. So it makes you wonder if she was responsible for Luminara's body becoming a trap, or
oh, let's come back to that in a hot second. The
yeah,
one thing I will say about piecing together this information. Don't worry, Mark. We're going to talk about Luminara.
we'll be
Don't you
there.
worry. The one thing that I will say, that if you kind of read between the lines and kind of, again, there's nothing to really research here. Um, let's see. We're 35 minutes into the show. I think I'm due to talk about the High Republic again.
Do it.
So we know that the Acolyte is coming, right? We know that this new show is coming, and we know
So
that a key
excited.
player in the Acolyte is meant to be Vernestra Rowe, who at that point is supposed to be like almost like over 100 years old. So what we know about this Miralar lifespan is that they can live for a really long time.
Yeah.
So if Barriss is out there, I mean, where's she at? Unless she was struck down, lost a battle or something. I mean, in theory, Barriss could be out there doing all sorts of crazy things. And if she was so disillusioned by the Jedi Temple, or by the Jedi Order, and was really kind of flirting with the dark side there, it does open up the door to see her appear in other places, or perhaps commit other sins. Perhaps, like, I don't know, selling out her master's body. Being like, oh, hey, she's
Seriously,
dead, Empire. You want to
I
use her for something?
ooh, honestly, I have to know. Like, okay, Rebels, like, thanks for that little tidbit. Like, how did this happen?
Yeah.
And it just, oh, yeah. And John is saying, Filoni said he had more planned for Barriss, so she could pop up in something. Uh,
What I would love to
so
see
that'd be
is if
cool.
she got the same kind of treatment as like Sabe did in the Vader comics,
That would be
where
cool.
she ended up becoming sort of like a like, if we're really going to lean into that storyline, right? There's no redemption for her, and she's gone full on dark side. I would love to see a spin on, like, almost like what they did with Sabe, and make her sort of like a hand to Vader or something like that.
That's like complete side note, but that is like the most wildest storyline. Can you imagine someone who is a body double for the love of your life?
it's pretty messed up, right?
Being full on dark side, like, I got my paw in my back and she's evil like me. Like, I don't know. It's just
it's pretty
it blows
grim.
my mind. So yeah, thank you for that, Disney. I enjoy those comics.
It's definitely it's a weird one for sure. But like,
sure. Just
I remember
anyway.
I remember when Rebels came out, everybody was quick to be like, "Oh my God, the Seventh Sister! It's Barriss. She's back. It's Barriss. It's Barriss." And I'm like, no, it's not Barriss. But like, part of me was like, that it's definitely not, and then the other part of me was like, I could kind of get behind that storyline.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I felt about Merrick. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's this, it's Starkiller, it's Ezra, it's everything else," and I'm like, "Can't somebody just be that person? Like, just because they have a mask on, does that have to be someone?" Let's get that. And yeah, so
But
I am of the belief that it is what it is until it isn't. So
so yeah, I mean, she definitely still could be out there. Luminara, on the other hand, we know is not. We see her fall into Sheik. Definitely a victim of Order 66.
heartbreaking.
And it really was. I mean, her body. I mean, it's sort of implied, I guess, that it's like not even the first time they've used her body to kind of like lure in Jedi to like,
Yeah, like that's
kind of,
dark Night Sister
right.
magic
So
there.
just like holding on to her body. It's pretty grim.
And when she like walks back in, and then her face just like mummifies, like ugh.
It I don't know. That was such a weird thing too, because it does also imply, and again, like, these are the stories that I feel like we'll get in a lot of like the short story anthologies that are starting to be really popular, or maybe like some sidebar comics or whatever. But like, it's implied at that moment where they discover, oh my God, Luminara is still alive. She can train Ezra. It's implied that Kanan is like actually really fond of her, and has a lot of respect and like regard for her. So I don't know. Pretty good.
We know
Wait, I missed. Hang on, I missed. Oh yeah, okay. Okay, Sarah's back. Okay, cool. Yeah, I don't know. It just says Facebook user here, and we go with that.
Nope, we're good.
Now we can see you. Now we know who you are. Yeah. So I don't know. I would love to see these two so much more fleshed out than I think we've gotten them.
They deserve it.
They do, and like there's what we're learning is that there's no shortage of stories, but like we keep sort of harping on the same characters like over and over and over again. Where I'm like, hey, we have so many sidebar characters. Like, I don't know, where's my like Kit Fisto short story? Where's my Luminara short story? What the heck is like going on with Isla and Bly? Like, give me those stories. But instead, we're gonna get more
Yeah,
Anakin
I
Skywalker
I
content.
always I always attach myself to like the outer edge of characters, or like, you know, the outcasts, the rebels, for all intents and purposes, and the ones that nobody really cares about until they are forced to care about them in some way. So that's
Well,
par for the course.
and really, when we think about like the domino effect that these particular characters, these two characters have had, I mean, we would not have had. Oh my God, you could. This story could go on forever because without the temple bombing,
Ahsoka
Ahsoka wouldn't
stays
have
in the
gone to
order.
trial.
Yeah.
Ahsoka stays in the order. She doesn't leave the order. Anakin doesn't have to deal with all that nonsense. Like, would he? Well, I mean, I still think he would have gone full on Vader, but like, still, um, we wouldn't have lost Ahsoka to, her "I am no Jedi" moment. Um, Sarah, you're trying to make me take the bait, aren't you? Trying to make me take the bait. How do we as a fandom deal with them changing our most favorite characters? See, here's what I would say. With these two characters, because their backstory is so spotty and they aren't given a lot, like there's one Legends book where they actually introduce Luminara, not so much Luminara, where they introduce Barriss for the first time, but that's all we have.
Yeah.
They appear in a couple comics here and there. There is no backstory. Because we don't have a ton of storyline with them, and because we don't have a lot of history with them, I'm okay with them fleshing these two out, and I kind of wish they would. I think at the time they were really unique characters. When the prequels came out and we first saw Luminara and Barriss in her little blink and you miss it kind of cameos, um, we didn't have a lot of really strong female Jedi representation.
Right. It was Ahsoka and not really anything else.
Oh, so I'm talking about like the prequels, like even
Oh
before the
yeah.
Clone
Oh
Wars.
my God, yeah. Like Ayla Secura is just like this blue, literally this blue Twi'lek who just gets gunned down on Felucia, and we're like, whoa, who's she? Where did she come from?
Yeah,
And
where's she been for 3 movies?
and George basically, I think she worked on set, and George needed a character to stand out in something, and Amy Allen was very thin and very gorgeous, and he thought she would make a good Twi'lek and Jedi, and he just made her lead the clones. So it was not supposed to be a speaking role; it was just supposed to be filled in, and we have Ayla Secura because of it. So that part I find interesting, and as long as it's like well done and the representation is good, but like I don't know. I don't like
I
the
think
xenophobia.
these two. I don't either, and that's what I'm saying is like because I don't like it, I want them to have almost like their
Retribution.
redemption. Yeah,
Yeah,
like their redemption. Like give
redemption!
us.
You get a
Yeah,
redemption, and you
I
get a
know.
redemption.
I feel like that's like a banner we have to have loaded at the bottom of every
Yeah.
show.
Come on,
Redemption.
Mark. Let's go.
Everyone gets one. You get a redemption, and you get a redemption.
Yeah.
Um, I think and granted, I know that like not everybody is us, right? And not
Nope.
everybody spends a disproportionate amount of time like really diving into this kind of thing. Um,
Glued to our televisions and our YouTube channels, and
yeah, it's or like the level of excitement that you feel like like I'm trying to finish one book before I start getting into some of the like because Return of the Jedi from a certain point of view just came out, and
I need to get that.
those short story books are so great because like you turn the page, you're like, yes, we're getting a short story from Cy Snoodles. Like
Yes, Kristen Baber wrote a short
yeah,
story about
she
Cy
sure did.
Snoodles. I am so excited that like
Um,
my big lipped singer is gonna be like
but
getting her own
these
little jam.
characters that are in the background that like didn't get their full moment in the sun, like those are the stories that I want to see more of, and I would
Absolutely.
I would beg beg Del Rey and Disney Publishing to consider doing um, almost like an anthology of short stories for some of these like lesser celebrated Jedi.
Yeah, I would love to be a part of that. That would be so cool.
Do
Make some
like
art.
do like I mean because
I'd be
there's
down.
like no shortage of them.
Yeah.
Um,
If it can be
you know,
done, I'm in.
yeah, it's you know we're getting it a little bit across all eras now. I know that there's like a what's it called? There's like a Jedi and Sith short story anthology, I think, but it's like one. I can't remember what it's called now, but one does kind of exist, but it's like I would love to hear more about these two and Kit Fisto and Plo Koon and
Yeah.
Isla and Deepa and I mean I would even go so far as to say Mace because like Mace Windu, who everybody
Yeah.
knows and loves, like still doesn't have like a ton of
I feel like we get
canon
like a
story.
really strong like present day with him, like leading up before his death, like within like the years leading up before his death, but we don't really get a lot of like young Mace stuff. So
Oh, we did, and then they threw it to Legends,
like
which that's a catch-22 one because
yeah,
that book is Shatterpoint. It's a phenomenal book. Matthew
yeah,
Stover, I think, wrote that one. It's called Shatterpoint. It talks about Mace Windu's origins and his training of Deepa Billaba. I won't spoil it, but there's a really, really good reason why it can't be canon. But it's a great book, and if you ever want to learn more about the story we could have had with Mace Windu, there it
pick
is.
it up. Yeah.
But like these two, come on, Luminara, let's have like a fun background story for you, and let's give you like history. Because even if you go on Wikipedia, which is like super frustrating to me, they don't even list a master for her. Like you don't know
Yeah.
anything about her.
Nothing. And it's
So
so infuriating.
to bring it back to like the Miralarans train Miralarans, I'm like, okay, well, can we learn more about that culture? Like, can we learn more about you know who she is? Oh yeah, there's a little bit of
Awesome
oh yeah.
cosplayer at Fan Expo Boston representing Luminara. I don't get to see too many of these in the wild, but I
Who
hope
are you, Luminara?
you
Identify
are
yourself, cosplayer.
stunning. So cool.
Identify yourself.
So
I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh yeah, I mean like we have other like Miralaran representation, I guess. Like
yeah.
so for like the four people who watched Resistance, we had Sonara San,
Yes, I love Sonara. Like she
who
starts off
yeah,
being a little shady and crooked and a space pirate, and then she helps the
ends
crew.
up being kind of cool. And then of
Yeah.
course we have the Seventh Sister, who everyone like knows and loves.
Hmm.
We have the Resistance pilot in Squadrons.
I don't
But
know.
again, the fact that I can't even tell you their name, the only thing I want to say they were a non-binary character, and that was like the big exciting moment.
Yeah.
Was it was like non-binary representation in a Star Wars game for the first time, which was really
Yeah.
exciting. The big one I think is going to be like the big redeeming Miralaran character is going to be Vernestra Rowe, and frankly, I am fully on board with that.
It's exciting.
She's listen. Anyone who gets knighted at 15,
Sign us up.
I love her so much. I love her. I love her. She's a nightmare. Um, absolute nightmare. I don't know who else am I missing. What other Miralarans? We talked about Sonara. Let's see. We talked about Seventh Sister, Vernestra. Who am I missing? There have to be
Ben.
others.
Ben.
No.
No.
I think that was, but not in the High Republic.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah. I don't
I
know.
need to read those books. I'm just. Ugh.
Book club is on its way.
I think Sonara got a better deal than Barriss and Luminara did. Like she actually
She
has
got more
arc,
redemption. But I think that
know?
was also like the choice of like folding her into like the actual story. I mean, she was in enough of that story where I feel like she kind of had to have
Right.
her redemption and her moment to be like, hey, I'm not actually a crooked space pirate, but here we are. Whew. Luminara, Barriss, sis, I know what you were going for, but maybe bombing the temple was not it. Maybe don't do that. Oh yeah. I totally forgot about him. Okay, so that's a little bit of a spoiler, but yes, in Path of the Open Hand, in Convergence. absolutely was a Miralaran, and then Sislin Mir, of course, Ace's master. Oh my god, I totally forgot about him.
We just
I thought
completely forgot Sislin. Even though we talked about him earlier, we totally forgot about him. Yeah.
and Cataclysm.
Yeah.
Yeah, not there quite yet. Getting there. Close, but not quite there yet. It's only gonna get worse because I just bought a shit ton of books I gotta get through really quick. Ugh.
Oh, I know. When you said you like your Amazon delivery had come in, I was like, "Ooh, what you get?" I'm like living for your Instagram stories every time a new book's arrive. I'm just like,
That and
today.
I found a comic book shop a mere 10 minutes away from me. So now I'm like back to being established as a comic book shop.
Nice.
And if
Awesome.
you have been following the train wreck that are my Instagram stories, I am working on a High Republic book club because there was enough interest. So
Cool.
we hit enough interest. So I'm trying really hard to get that established. So if that's something you're interested in, stay tuned. Star Wars books potentially to follow, depending on if this kills me or not. But I've got some exciting things cooking, if that's your
Heck
cup
yeah.
of tea. Right. So,
Sarah's
friends.
down.
I know, Sarah. Yeah, Sarah responded. There was enough interest. I was actually really pleasantly surprised with the interest for a book club. So I'm trying to work out some details and figure out what that's going to look like with partnering with a couple other Star Wars book Instagrammers and using some different models. Stay tuned. There has been demand. I hear you. I see you. I am but one tired
Mom.
gremlin of a human being that I'm trying my best to get
Oh,
through things.
killer.
So we'll see. We'll see. But we are approaching that
Yes,
hour.
John. Oh my god. Yes.
Bookworms are better than brainworms unless the brainworms are trolly. And then in which case, I can't say no to a trolly sour gummy worm. Shoot, sign me up.
It's like those really disturbing trolley videos that they
Those commercials are a
commercials.
mess.
I know, but they're like when I first saw them I was like shook, and then I'm like, "Oh, those are weird and really cute in a weird way." Like, "Hey, you're entirely possessed by worms, but they're really
Real
cute
mess.
worms."
Sherry, I hear you and I see you, and it's not out of the realm of possibility. The beautiful thing about a High Republic book club is that the High Republic books go in a very specific chronological order, so it's easy to find a starting place and a stopping place.
Yeah.
As a lot of the Star Wars books, unless we pick like a trilogy, like if we did like the Alphabet Squadron, it would be like book 1, 2, and 3, which would be really easy. But with a lot of these like standalone books, it's a little bit harder to like find a through line and a timeline, if that makes sense. So again, not out of the realm of possibility. I want to see if my experiment with Light of the Jedi works, and if it does, I will pass that on to somebody else. I will probably stay with the High Republic and then give the model to somebody else to do a Star Wars book club if that's their thing. Hey Sherry, you want to lead a Star Wars book club? This is
Instant
me
pass.
delegating, passing the buck. uh, yes. So
Oh,
we
my
didn't
goodness.
talk about this. Sorry, I don't even know
Yeah.
that I threw it in my notes because honestly,
I
it's been a
started
weird
to type
week.
them in and I forgot. So we have Mary Oyea. I think she played Barriss. Yeah. Olivia Dabo, she was the voice of Barriss. Cree Sumner, Nalini Kirshan, who was live action Luminara, and Meredith Salinger, all responsible for bringing Barriss and Luminara to life. And you can find Mary and Nalini at Rhode Island Comic Con.
Yeah, they're coming to
in
Rhode
November.
Island.
So excited. We get to say that we talked about them on our show. So
Yeah. And we are rooting for the redemption that their characters absolutely deserved.
Absolutely. Seriously.
The
Like,
representation they deserved.
I honestly wonder what their feelings are about it, like as women of color and as you know, I'm not gonna assume, their beliefs or anything like that to say they're Muslim or not, but just kind of see what they think about, how they've been portrayed and represented in the media and just kind of go from there. So
Yeah. Again, it's a strange and wonderful thing to see these characters that get like a blip in the radar in the live action movies, but to give them a story in the Clone Wars and then to just say, all right, they've got like their 3 episodes, that's it. Like it makes you want more. And frankly, I'm greedy, so give me more. I want more stories.
Yeah.
I
Do we
definitely
need
want more
a side
stories.
quest? No, we don't. We don't need a side quest, a droid side quest. Like we need more like substance.
Yeah, give me a book, give me a comic series, give me a one shot, give me something that's
Yeah.
gonna just fill in some of those blanks for me, because otherwise we sit here for an hour and speculate on what we could or could not have gotten. And the
Hey,
speculating is fun, don't get me
if we
wrong,
can
but
get a certain point of view story about Size Noodles, we can get more about Barriss and Luminara. Just saying.
that's what I'm saying. I mean, that's
Just
what I'm saying. Let's get more of that. Friends, we are rapidly approaching our 10 o'clock
yeah.
cutoff here. So just a couple of, the normal announcements, of course. So to clear up any confusion on our calendar, because frankly, I think Ashley and I were both confused by our calendar. We
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 totally were.
yeah. So we are a what are we, second and fourth, or first and no? We're first and third. See, I'm still
First,
messed
third.
up. We are first and third Wednesdays of the month. So we will be back on the 20th, September 20th. Same bat time, same bat place. I don't know. I wasn't old
And
enough for those.
we also have our incredibly snazzy Daughters of the Galaxy merch available
Mhm.
in the virtual Cantina TeePublic store. You can find the Daughters of the Galaxy logo shirt. What would Harrison Dula do? Shirts. Just so much cool stuff. So make sure you swing on over to our TeePublic store virtual Cantina. Right there, you can see it. Sabine's rocking it. I love that shirt.
Let's get over the armor.
Yep. And we have
What a
our
lumpy.
awesome Pride shirts. Make sure you get your Rebels Pride on. We also have our patriotic ones, and look at it, it's beautiful. So patriotic.
And get ready really, really early for 4th of
Yes.
July next year. Or I don't know, maybe just wear it wherever.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we are
So
deciding
yeah.
on our next feature. So if you feel a certain kind of way about
Yeah.
who we should cover next, by all means, please feel free to hit us up.
Yeah, absolutely. We can put stuff together. So actually, let's take a quick vote right now. Who do you guys want to see us cover in next time's episode of Daughters of the Galaxy? Drop it in the chat right now. And majority
No
votes right now.
pressure.
No pressure
We're
at
watching
all.
the chat.
We're making it like, viewer's choice, I guess. Mara Jade. Woo!
Oh God, I've got a lot of reading. Oh, that's going to require a lot of reading for me to have a competent conversation there.
Oh, I know. I mean, it's possible.
It's possible. It's possible, and I don't think it's inevitable, is what I'll say. I just don't know that I'm ready to do it on the 20th. I know. I'm like surprised every time we ask this question. It's always like, "Oh, Dr. Afra," and I'm like, I know. Bo-Katan, a strong possibility. It's going to be a lot of me banshee streaking about terrorism, but sure, we could talk about Bo-Katan. Yeah, she's in the future. I have a friend that's trying really hard to get me to read a lot of Mara Jade content anyway, so it's definitely coming. More terrorism. I mean, I guess that's our hook, right? We went from one flavor of terrorism to another flavor of terrorism.
Why
YouTube
not?
is going to flag. YouTube is going to flag this
we're
video.
so flagged. But yeah, we do not condone this, just so you know. But yeah. Yeah.
That would be appropriate.
That would be really cool, especially with everything going on lately. And I kind of find the Night Sisters fascinating because there's just so many. There's so many of them, and it's just the layers of. I don't know, like even when you are a Night Sister,
disciple.
yeah. Even when you
Because
are a
that's my
Night
favorite.
Sister, you have that gray area. Redemptions for all.
Yeah, right.
So,
it's also a great tie-in to Barriss because when they wanted to execute Quinlan Voss for Dark Disciple, they were like, "Oh, we should execute Barriss too because we were supposed to execute Quinlan Voss." See, there they go. There's the tie-in. I did it. Maybe we're going to talk about Ventress. I do love Ventress. I do love Ventress.
She is. And I got to meet Gray Delisle recently, and she is phenomenal. Oh my god, I love that lady. So yeah, that's pretty cool. We have some strong possibilities.
I'm gonna message Dave to be like, make up some graphics here, Dave. Let's go. Let's party.
Here's our next 5. Here we go.
Yeah. All right, friends. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Once again, you can see our socials there under our pictures. Please do not ever hesitate to reach out to us with ideas, with topics, just to chat, scream, yell, holler, whatever. We're pretty cool to talk to. Also, if you are not already subscribed to the YouTube channel, make sure you do that. We are producing more and more content. Mark and Spencer and everybody are working so hard to produce so much more content here. So if you're not already subscribed, please, by all means, make sure you do that. Follow us on Twitter, on Threads. Is anybody using Threads? I haven't used Threads yet. I don't use Hive either, but Hive and TikTok, we're everywhere, and we definitely want to connect with you. So thank you so much for spending your Wednesday with us.
Yeah, it's so good to be back and see you all, and honestly, thank you for contributing. Thank you for the chats. Like, honestly, you guys, we couldn't do this without you. Our whole show runs on the interactivity between us and you guys are amazing. So thank you so much for tuning in.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Have a great week. We'll see you soon. Back on the 20th. May the force be with you.